Okay, welcome again. I'm on the 115th script. As you can see, I have an interesting geometry here. It's been baked in. I'm going to remove it and hide it. It's got a nice pattern. We'll put it over into shaded. I'm going to show you how to use vector to point, the numbers to point tool, which is an interesting way at coming at gaining data. So what I want to do is build this geometry, and I'm going to control that geometry. And I want to slow down and show you what's happening. I've set the domain end at 10. Constructed a domain, put it through a range, but I put in a permanent number 2 into the steps to represent 0, 1, 2 for x, y, z. I'm then able to use a mask that I could set under the 3 values or the single values to imply x, y, z in any order I want. This will be the x, this will be the y, this will be the z. So I do have parametric control over those points. This is grabbing all 9 of those items, 3 counted 3 times. So what I have to do is go in and use the path mapper. And what I wanted to do was exclude and stagger the points that I actually could choose not only the points, this set of inner and outer pieces. I've excluded through doing this the step of the 0 and the beginning digit, so I don't end up counting that point at the beginning, if that makes sense, 3 times. I only want these 2 points, these 2 points, and these 2 points. So I basically programmed those in through the mask using this pattern of using null index, putting on the I indices, and then stepping it into a series counting by 3. And I'm not including 0 in either one. So I'm left with those split into 2 separate sections. So I actually took half up here and half down here, and I found it was easy to program them separate than try to divide it up another way. I had to call out any nulls that were there, and I drew a line between them. What a wonderful way to get this nice system of lines. At that point, I have a beautiful geometry. Generated, parametric, can be totally controlled. The radius is set at 1, so I can just put on a number slider here, which I haven't done. 0.00 is a rational number, and I can pull that down into a little more finesse like that. And I could also put points at the ends. What I then did was orient, and I oriented on a list coming out of the tree data, which I had, and I could pick if I wanted to orient it to the 1 point, to the 0 point, which is in the center, or to the 2. And so you get these different geometries that then you can use your flip matrix or your leave it running in as it normally is into a rotation. So if I run it into a rotation with a high count of 4, I can put it directly in like that. It swaps. Actually, I thought it swapped. It actually stays the same geometry at this point for both ones, which is interesting. So you don't need the flip data. It's just a different way of thinking of the data. So if I grab these two as well and do a little cut and paste, I think you'll find that the data streams, data structures are a little different. And of course, there we go, jumping and making a huge one. I need to make it so big it likes to. Maybe I can put a setting on there that doesn't jump that big when I put up the param viewer and put things in. 24 branches on that one with 4 items, and this one is, it maintains the same. And I'm not sure why. I have to start thinking about my data structures as to why that happens. Needless to say, I'm not going to worry too much about it, but I am going to play with my final forms and have this way of simplifying them so they're disconnected down to the 1 unit of what's happening, and then reposition them on the ends. And I can start to really cluster up this form and make this very interesting geometry pattern. And that is made from numbers to points on a very simple level. I'm going to leave it at the 4 because I like that, if I could just get it there. And, it's a playful way. You could pop up your radii if you wanted to see that a little larger. Just take a second. I could shift the points. This is how I did the swap. I'm sorry. I remembered I had a little swap from the angles. I can swap this way, and I can swap that way. Still getting these interesting geometries. I'm thinking of taking this to 3D print and then turning it into bronze into a shell form, which might be nice. I could play with the numbers and stagger them differently. I can change up the path mapper indices, swapping out for other paths. But really, it's a basis of coming in here and deciding what I wanted to do. Now, what happens if I take the mask and I actually preset that mask, disconnect this one? I will just clear the mask with a control off and control off, getting rid of the masks. And now what I'm going to do is just have a little bit of fun with the preset masks. Set the mask to XYZ, and it defaults, I believe, to XYZ. Set the mask to XYZ. And then I'm going to take my look at my geometries. Here they are. They should be fine. Not sure why they're jamming up. Let me grab on there. Why is it could be a different data stream that's coming out if I choose. The master set XYZ what is going on? I have my points from those numbers. I thought it would be the same, but maybe they've they've definitely come out. I have to go to the mask and I have to set them differently. So YXZ, and I think if I set this one to set the mask to ZXY, that could make for a different geometry and how it comes in results, and there they are. So let's get over here and see what actually has happened. So I've actually manipulated what's happening, kind of totally deranged it by going in and not using the X, the Y, and the Z in that pattern. So that's something I never played with before. You want to set your mask. I don't think anything's going to happen on the XY because I have 3 digits coming in. So I either have to use the Z, all patterns of Z, all patterns of Y, and I'm curious how this change in the values of choosing X, Y, Z would be different from choosing another one. So let's just leave it on so we can see everything. Very nice. So a little surprise in the end. Got a little lost 6 minutes in, so I can come in here and have fun with these mask values, bring them to Z. X is in the same position, so it remains the same. But like I said, you've got to get in here, you've got to play, and you've got to find out how and what the geometries are changing. I expected more here when I did this, but I didn't see it. So what I'm going to do is take this one out, set mask to X, Y, Z, see what happens, set the mask back to Z, nothing in the Y is happening, set my mask to X, I end up with that one. I'll probably have to reset because I spent 6 minutes of playing with this script, even though that's not what I initially intended. My initial intent was to do a polar array of these, and you'll find you have tons of things. So once you have a script, get in there, start to play with it, change up the numbers, have a working script all the way through, which is what I offer people online. And you get a sense of how lost I get within a simple script, and I'm always supporting myself. It's like being in mathematics and checking the answers of division with multiplication and multiplication with division. I've got to think what's happening with the numbers in the data trees, but then I've got to also visualize, and I've got to see why it's going right and why it's going wrong. But I did, find a pretty interesting pattern. I made that geometry. I'm happy with that geometry. If I pop this into seeing nothing and saying, okay, I'm pretty happy with what's being piped here as a unit. That's something that I might want to go back to and just have control over and think about what's happening when I change that shape. And certainly, at any point, since you know that's the pipe geometry, you can slip in a bunch of transformations here that you're very, at the basic level of learning these things. If you pulled a linear array, obviously, out of these, and it's got a default direction, and you did a count of maybe 3, you can affect that count in that direction with a vector, and then you can plug it in, and then you're going to get into, other things that you created like that, and you probably didn't want to do that, but it's a sense of, what have I ended up doing? I've got a large polar array. What are my geometries? How do I gain control over them? I definitely want to only see off. I just want to see my final geometry and think about how I can play off of that and reconnect it. It's nice to think sculpturally of inflating the numbers or inflating the puffiness of these tacks. Like that's another thing you could do. Bring that up to 3 and see if that wouldn't make them kind of reconnect as units. There you go. Now you've got a bulbous kind of casting that these are a little bit too far away from each other. The direction is set in 10 units in the X direction, so you can get there and build yourself a vector. And it certainly doesn't have to be in that direction. You can go here and you can set yourself one vector up in this position. You might want to have your plane on. But let's just throw it up in this direction like that and see that it takes a second to recur to that and play off in that direction from the 0 point. So once again, you've got your geometries happening, and actually I like the top view of that and what's being created. How could I then go in and if I wanted them all to connect, I could change the distancing, or I could actually change this. So that's where I get playful on a fundamental level of things after being playful with the script once I get it running. So yeah, that's about 10 minutes, and I do get lost. I can't encourage it enough to my students and to people new at this that are struggling with data trees and getting into multiple data. Actually, the data trees don't come in until this stage. You can see by the dashed line, I'm dealing with pretty simple information as I go into it. I chose to separate these so it would be a list instead of a list of 2 lists. And that's a way of understanding it. So I'm just going to throw that in there. I thought I jacked up my, I didn't. I'm just going to pop my radius up, so I have to react to that. Think about these in connection with one another again. And I would do my Boolean unions and my spacing that that direction which is there has chosen. I can choose that to go into vector because you gain more and more skills with this. And I don't mind getting lost a little bit in this. The vector itself has been created, so let's extract that vector direction. Let's plug that into here. Let's put on a number slider of 2, but go in and edit that and take that down into a -10 to rational numbers. And then we can play with sliding that back into -5 for an amplitude, then put that vector in. And you're going to see I'm going to have a totally different kind of control over where these go and how they come close to one another and how I manipulate them. So you've got ability to sculpt and move geometries. Now, no saying I was going to make this bulbous, fat little pudgy thing here on the table, but not a bad casting. It'd be very hard to make in clay and plaster. You'd have to make multiple molds, cut it together. You'd be working hard. You can digitize that, and that's a longer video, but it shows the playfulness of what I'm thinking in my head, how I play with a functioning script, how I deal with simple numbers, get lost, make errors, learn nodes. That's what it's all about. And I'm going to leave this ugly script and this ugly object. I don't mind doing that. I'm just going to bring it down here a bit and bring these down and say, okay, well, that's one version. And what I would do is go in there and group it, say, give it a pleasant color. That usually implies that I like it. And then I would save that as a file. And then I would go in and I would save it as an additional version of that file. Let's say B at this point. And that's why when I put these up online, there's so many. I can go back into here as saving that document. And now I can change whatever script was there, make another version, keep that script. Because it is about, it's not about mass production, it's about mass customization of what you do. And once you've designed enough scripts to play with, and you find out a means of making, you'll realize the power of Grasshopper and Rhino. I can't say enough about it. That was an awkward video, but it's more the real time of how I'm thinking and making, and I'm just going to say that again and again. You've got to get in here and play and not worry about having these templates and following these tutorials and memorizing objects and regurgitating them. There is creativity within these. There's conceptual creativity within these. There's interesting new products and ideas and things that you probably never would generate in CAM because you don't have the power of the computer programmer. If you're not going to go into the path mappers and split lists and use a little bit of scripting. Very simple, and I would say learn a little bit of Python, and then when you get further and further into this, jump into the maths and start to write your script a little more condensed in your choice of language, be it Python, C script, or VB script. That could get really fun, but I'm stuck doing this. Thank you for watching.